Alright fellas, here we are back in Pokemon Masters. Today we're taking a look here at Rika and Clodsire, 1 out of 5, 6 X with the Field EX role unlocked. Our first support field, support sync pair with the Field EX role, alright? I'm not forgetting Thornton this time, even though he should be forgotten, but anyway. So she's our first support slash field sync pair, and is definitely a good opening to the role combination, right? She's a very good support for sure. She's got pretty good defensive stats here: 362 defense, 377 special defense, with level 140, right? Can go higher, of course, with level 150. She has X special defense, all for special defense buffing for the team. She's got mixed offensive buffing ability, which is really good, alongside move gauge acceleration. She's got her big part of her kit, which is rampant mud slap, which hits all enemies and is activated whenever she's hit by an attacking move. The move never misses, it lowers target accuracy by 2, leaves the target poisoned, it turns the field of play into ground zone, and increases the physical and special moves next of all allies by 2 stat ranks. That's a very strong buddy move with a lot of strong effects, very, very good for any burst damage you need to be doing, which we'll be looking at a lot of. And she's also got Team Trash Tank 9, a very good healing ability, especially combined with her special defense buffing, meaning you're not going to be taking too much damage from special attacks anyway, later on in the battle mostly, and of course you'll be healing off that damage as well. She's also got Take Hit, opponent 1 of stats down to 9, lowering a random stat of attack, special defense, special attack, special defense, or speed, or defense, whatever I said, I forget. Either way, you'll be lowering one of those stat ranks by 2. If you wonder what that sound was, I almost fell out of my chair. And then she's also got Critical Squad 1, raising crit of all allies by 1 when the move is successful. Very strong ability. She's got offensive buffing abilities, very solid defensive abilities as well. The accuracy debuffs on her buddy move could be pretty helpful for some sync pairs as well. And she's also got her own lucky skill, Initial Synchro Healing, which I actually do not swap out of in this entire battle. You could bring Vigilance, you could bring Head Start 1, Adrenaline 1, whatever. But I opted to stick with Initial Synchro Healing because I like its 20% healing. And of course in the grid she's got pretty much nothing. Antitoxin is good for Annabelle, which we, spoiler, do fight later. But whatever, I'm not going to stall the abilities too long. We're just going to go ahead and hop into the showcase, because what better way to showcase Rika's abilities than to actually show what she can do in battle. So let's go ahead. Yeah, let's go ahead and just hop into these battles. First battle here is against Ground Weak Chantal, where we're going to be able to do a full free-to-play ground setup with Clay and Hapu. 2 pretty underrated sync pairs. I'd say Clay is pretty good. He just needs his EX. And Hapu... Yep. Anyway. One of the best things about Rika, which of course I can't utilize here because of the fact that how the lodge functions, is that if you get Rika, you effectively get a free ground duo with Lodge Rika, which is what would be good to replace Hapu with in this scenario. I think Clay's fine enough as is. And that's a good ground combination for anyone who needs like a free, quote-unquote, free setup, right? Because like if you're going to go for Rika already, then just going and also nabbing Lodge Rika, it will get you a great ground setup if you are missing options, right? Like, of course, Courtney exists. There's other ground options, but pretty much all of, like, the free ground options are, sorry, Clay fans, pretty subpar. Again, Clay does not have his EX. I think he would definitely benefit a lot from that. And even Hapu with her EX is really not strong. Naomi's fine, and especially with Rika now, Naomi's fine, but whatever. I mean, I still don't think a lot of these a lot of the ground characters, free-to-play wise, are that effective. But either way, this setup was pretty fun because we got to max out both offensive stats. Well, we got to buff the physical attack specifically for the allies, of course, which is helpful. And we also were able to debuff enemy accuracy, which is good for activating Hapu's dizzying power multiplier for her high horsepower. And of course, Hapu could buff her defense by herself. Special defense tanking was very nice too. And she was able to also activate Brute Wits for Clay's nuke on top of applying poison. So Vigilant Toxin 3 was also activated. So the poison, special defense buffing, offensive buffing, crit buffing as well. All that stuff was very, very useful for this specific setup. And of course, also applying gauge acceleration was very nice because ground types are notoriously slow, which is a problem you'll still end up encountering with utilization of Rika, as you saw in that battle, right? I had to have like used Mud Slap once with Hapu, maybe a Mud Shot or 2 with Clay, right? So gauge still was not that efficient, but that is mostly fixed if you can pick up Group Slapdash on Rika and get it to actually proc. I do think that is probably her biggest flaw, is a lack of proper gauge management, which of course you can work around, but of course, that it's still something that I feel should have been noted. Either way, we were able to get the win in nonetheless at 3K point master mode. It is, Unova Stadium, it's not exactly the hardest, but Rika was definitely doing a lot of, heavy lifting there. The tanking was amazing with her initial synchro healing plus the team trash tank. Special defense buffs were nice, and, we got some pretty good damage in it too from the physical moves next, the ground zone, and all of that jazz. So, yeah, I do think definitely a superb ground support, able to help out pretty much any ground ally, especially, these two free-to-play characters who could definitely use the buff. And again, she's able to apply poison and special defense buffs, great for Clay, and to mix offensive and crit buffing for all other attackers for sure. Very good stuff. By the way, for anyone without any keen sense of hearing, Clay did not crit on his sync move last time, otherwise that would have KO'd. Anyway, this setup here, we've got ourselves Cynthia and Naomi. I wanted to use this setup because it was a mixed set, which I wanted to showcase Rika's ability to buff both offenses in a mixed setting, as well as also make good abuse of ground and sand being set at the same time, because of course, generally with Cynthia, you want to have a sand setter, Ingo, Variety Giovanni, maybe Singer Silver, and Paulo, someone like that, right? You want a sand setter, right? This setup, we utilize Cynthia with her nuke as a sand setter, which does hinder the power of her nuke a good margin, but also it then enables earth power with Naomi right afterwards, so I mean, it works out nonetheless. This is mostly something that you're not going to be replicating off-type. I just figured I would showcase it on-type instead, because it works out nonetheless. And I like the idea of utilizing Cynthia's sync move, getting the sand up with Dust Kicker, and then being able to pretty much immediately utilize the buddy move with Rika right after to set ground zone, get ourselves +2 in physical and special moves next. I did not mean to use Slash with Cynthia there, by the way. I want that to be known. That was a complete misplay or an accident, but either way, it's fine. It doesn't really matter that much. I mean, the Slash still does decent damage. That's good enough, right? And then we end up doing 10,000 with Naomi, right? So the mixed offensive buffing was definitely nice for sure, and of course having the sand and ground zone up simultaneously was good too. The biggest problem with that setup specifically is that I could not utilize Rika for a support EX because I had to, or set up extended ground zone because I had to use Cynthia's nuke for setting sand, but I was used to that when I did the Tapu Bulu run with Cynthia because I had to use Cynthia to set her own sand, which mostly never worked out as expected, but I mean, we got the win in the end, so, who cares? Whatever, doesn't matter. Setting sand, mixed buffing, setting ground zone, mixed buffing with her physical and special moves next buffs, as well as her mixed offensive buffs, makes Rika, again, a pretty good general support for any attacking type. She's not catered to physical or special. She can work on both sides and can work just as effectively, so that's definitely nice for sure. It's just that mostly special ground has no real way to show itself. It's literally just Lodge, Rika, and Naomi, and that's effectively it. So, yeah, whatever. Let's move on to the next setup. Admittedly, this setup is very weird as is, for the simple fact that I did not want to try and utilize another on-type battle with Maxi, and I also didn't want to try and go for the hell that was trying to make Maxi work off-type at 1 out of 5, because, Sun, the lack of damage, lack of Maxi being a generally good unit in general. I'm very redundant with those statements, aren't I? I'm kidding, by the way, Maxi's fine. Anyway, the big thing with this was that I wanted to use Rika to power up Fall Roxanne with, the ground zone and the physical moves next, yada yada, and also accuracy debuffs. But I wanted to... I also wanted to try and get a sprint sync pair in here, because the big thing with Fall Roxanne's sync stat flipping ability is that it's good. Yeah, flipping stats is nice and all that, but you have to get to the sync move first. Ground lacks a really good way of applying sync ramping outside of just running triple head start 1 for lucky skills. So I had to kind of go with someone else that could actually, fulfill that role. I went with Archer because a sprint unit is generally your go-to for sync ramping utility nowadays, and also because I didn't want to make abuse of the characters that I commonly go to, like Dojo Gloria, Sigma, Ray, Adaman, those characters that can actually do a little bit of ramping. I didn't want to try and go back down to, so I kind of wanted to stick with this as is. So hey, medialization of Archer. Also did not mean to on-type with Archer. I mean, I'm relatively confident that with some different plays and different setups and whatever else, could do the exact same setup off-type. It's just that I wanted to specifically fight Caitlyn, and Archer just happened to be on-type. There was no intention of that happening, but, I mean, it did happen nonetheless, so... yeah. Anyway, whatever, it's fine. We're able to use Rika in order to power up Fall Roxanne, a relatively decent amount anyway. It would definitely be a better showing if Roxanne was with multiple dupes, which I have intended to do. I have tried to think about duping out Fall Roxanne and giving her the EX role as well, but I've just never gotten around to it. There's always the thought in the back of your head that's like, oh, what if a good unit drops next month? Especially with next month probably being, well, almost certainly being Master Fairs, so that's another thing you gotta worry about. Which also makes me happy that I got Rika on a daily, so that's fun. Anyway, yeah, there was the Rika empowering Fall Roxanne and also utilizing Archer for sync ramping. I definitely do think that the one thing that Ground could use the most right now is a sync ramper or some other method of applying sync countdown by whatever method, whether it be sprint, whether it be just sync countdown or whatever. I do think that the ground type having a unit that is specifically dedicated to that role, again, any other sprint role character, Archer, Ray, whoever, I think would be a good addition to the team and definitely a good buff for Fall Roxanne specifically, but also just generally helpful and another partner for Rika to abuse as well. So that'd be nice. And here is the magnum opus of on-type ground battles, the Ultimate Battle versus Lucy. Definitely renowned as one of the probably easiest Ultimate Battles to exist, and I can definitely see that sentiment for sure. I wanted to try the setup with Rika, Courtney, and Clay, because I just wanted to see if that would work, and well, spoiler, it would not. If Courtney maybe got the EX role, I could see it, but here we are in the modern day with realistic scenarios, it is not. So the big thing was that you couldn't do enough damage, really. I mean, Courtney can nuke the middle, and that's fine, but you gotta consider that Lucy has double endurance with 80%, 40% health, which is really annoying to deal with. Also, again, lack of sync countdown on ground does not help, and also because the lack of actual spread damage and damage in general outside of Courtney's nuke was not good. So, if you wanted to know why the Clay setup didn't work, there you go. This is fun, specifically because Rika is definitely good for this battle, 100%. She's definitely made a lot better with dupes because you can get things like recuperation, you can get first aid 4, I think you get better team healing abilities in general. You also get like evasion buffs, speed buffs as well. Her dupes effectively, also Noxious Hit is a good one, right? She's able to actually effectively debuff enemy stats and apply better healing to allies and better just supportive ability, also with Shielded on X Special Defense. But she works just fine here at 1 out of 5 as well, because she's of course able to set ground zone. That's the big thing with her setting ground zone and also extending it, as well as applying special defense buffs to allies to prevent from the sludge wave. I think Lucy's sync move is physical, but really I don't think that matters. Yeah, it's physical. It doesn't really matter that much in the end. You're also getting random debuffs with Rika, which I think is a really good aspect to consider. The fact that you're able to randomly debuff enemies could definitely debuff some offenses, attack, special attack, whatever. You can also debuff defenses, like see how they have -2 as is. Which, I mean, that's probably mostly due to Courtney, right? But still, I was not really managing or looking. It also could be good for helping potentially to debuff speed, which, of course, with all the multipliers that they have based on speed, that's good in this area. Able to nuke with Adam in here. Support EX is this is effectively double support EX because of Adam having the EX role. I wanted to make utilization of Courtney's nuke for the power, but really it didn't end up mattering too much because of just how much pure damage Adaman could do by himself. So he was able to pretty much take the entire role of nuking here. And I think, honestly, considering all of that, you could probably end up replacing Courtney in this setup, maybe with Clay. Realistically thinking, you probably could end up replacing Courtney with Clay. But there is also the factor that you may have to consider Ground Wish and Ground Zone potentially going down, right? You may have to adjust to that. But of course, you probably could time things better. So honestly, if I were to think about it before doing this battle, I may have actually attempted an Adam and Rika and Clay setup. In theory, at the very least, with how this battle ended up working, I honestly think that setup would have worked just fine. Think about that, a 3-star unit actually being an ultimate battle. That's probably already happened, but that would have been cool. Either way, Rika was good for the battle for sure. Again, the accuracy debuffs were nice, which I think she has Piercing Gaze, so it doesn't really matter in the end that much, but hey, I mean, maybe for any character who has any accuracy debuff multipliers besides Hapu. Lodge Rika. But yeah, again, the debuffs were nice as well, but the attack and special attack and the defenses as well is good in that area. Speed is also good as well, right? You're able to get rid of the enemy multipliers. So really, any offensive debuffs or speed debuffs is good, and of course, physical defense is great for most ground types, and if you happen to be running a special ground type, then the special defensive debuffs are nice as well. So really, any debuffs that the enemy can proc is going to be useful in some area, so, and also being able to debuff them by 2 is nice too. Also. And also, of course, being able to set up ground zone twice and extending it is very nice. It made even better in the grid with the 50% expansion or extension, right, as well. And of course, mixed up buffing as well is really good. Overall, Rika's a very strong unit for sure. She's got a lot of abilities that are good. Not necessarily unique, I would say, but well, other than the grounds and stuff, I mean, that's definitely unique. But I mean, overall, I would say that she's definitely like kind of a copy-ish character of Neo Champion Rosa with the physical and special buffing ability, as well as maybe for the ground zone, she's pretty unique in that area, but I think she's very similar to Neo Champion Rosa in my opinion, but she just lacks the sync countdown from the Sprint EX roll, as well as lacking things like potions for the healing, but she's still really good. Of course, the spam for physical and special moves next, and the status and whatnot, which status is replaced with poison, but whatever. I like Rika. Definitely a good character. Definitely a character I'm glad I invested in. But yeah, let me know what you think about Rika down in the comments below. I'll see y'all later, and I hope you all enjoyed.